Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu wasallam ala Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. We are continuing our study of the work that is entitled Minhaj al-Salikin wa Tawdih al-Fiqh fi ad-Din, the way of the traveler, understanding or explaining, clarifying fiqh in the deen, clarifying law within the religion. And we have focused upon and we have entered into the book that is entitled Kitab al-Nikah, the book of marriage. And this work has been authored by the luminary, the esteemed scholar, Sheikh Abdurrahman ibn Nasir al-Sa'di. May Allah the Exalted bestow expansive mercy upon his soul as he passes in the year 1376 after the Hijrah, which coincides with approximately 1956 or 1957. In our previous discussion, we discussed some introductory matters as it relates to marriage. We defined what marriage is. We looked at the hukum of marriage in Islam. We looked at the verdict of Allah upon marriage in Islam. And we also began examining what exactly it is that we are looking for in a spouse. And today we forward our discussion and we begin to discuss now, when we are identifying a person that we believe we want to get to know better, when we are identifying a person that we want to consider for marriage, what exactly does that look like? What does the courtship process look like in Islam? And it is important that we discuss this because there is an understanding in our culture that there are actually a couple of different understandings, but there's an understanding in our culture that you don't know the person that you marry, and that you marry someone that you don't really know. That is not an Islamic concept, where you can't get to know the person that you marry. And where this comes from is, you'll hear the Muslims saying, well, we don't have boyfriends and girlfriends in Islam. Or you hear the people saying we don't date. Okay, so for sake of this discussion, let's say we submit to that, and then they take the next step, and then they say because there are no boyfriends and girlfriends in Islam, you just marry a person without actually knowing who they are. We made that up. We made that up. That doesn't exist. Also, there is this idea that we have in our culture here in the West, and we hear it floating around, and we hear a phrase. We hear people say the phrase "sit down." I had a sit down, or I want to have a sit down with the brother, or I want to have a sit down with the sister. Give me a verse, give me a hadith that says sit down. It's not there. We made that up. That's culture, right? That's our culture. That is Western culture, in particular American culture, but Western culture broadly, you find this type of a thing. That's not necessarily the way to approach this, because if you go through this, what we call this sit down process, right? If you call it that, okay, you identify someone that you may be interested in, you contact the imam or some administrator at the masjid, and you sit in the office with the person and the guardian or the imam or the administrator with the person that you're interested in. You close the door and you talk for a little while, and then you do that a couple times, maybe a couple phone conversations, then you say, okay, let's get married. You don't know that person. You don't know that person, and you only know you should be marrying that person or not, right? You don't know. Right? You rolling the dice, right? Okay. Whereas What we're actually looking to do, whether you go this route that we just described or not, what you're looking to do is reach a level of certainty that you want to marry this person. You're looking for certainty. You're not looking for doubt. If you're in a state of doubt, you're not there yet. You're not there yet. All right? You're looking for certainty that I want to marry this person. And you want to marry this person because the person has the qualities that we mentioned in our previous lesson, that the person has deen as a foundation. The person has spirituality, has faith practice, has religiosity, spirituality as a foundation. But that's not the only quality. And above this on that foundation, we are looking at each spouse at the other, where we are looking at the attraction that we have for that person with whatever attraction is to you. Maybe you are attracted to the soul of the person. Maybe it's the character and the personality. Maybe there is physicality that is there. Maybe it is their mental. You're attracted to the mind of the individual, but you're looking to establish some level of attraction or beauty, whatever beauty is and attraction is for you. You're looking to the societal stature of the individual. What type of family does this person come from? What is the background of this person? What is the upbringing of this person? What is the social class, the social class of this person? And can I identify with that or not? Right? Can I jive with that or not? Does it percolate for me or not? Does it resonate with me or not? And of course, you're also looking to the level of wealth of that person. So broadly, you're looking for compatibility. So you don't only identify religiosity in an individual and there's no compatibility there. We're looking for compatibility. And if there is not compatibility, it doesn't mean the person is a bad person. It just may mean this person is not for you. Does that make sense? Because sometimes we enter into our marriages and we look at the thing that we want in the person, and we turn a blind eye to other things that are there that we don't want, which can be okay. But you can't turn a blind eye to the things that you don't want if you know they're going to become problematic for you inside of the marriage. Because typically, the first 2 years of a marriage, you're getting to know that person. Right? You're just getting to know the person for the first couple years of a marriage. About 5 years into the marriage, okay, now the marriage is starting to settle, right? You know what you're dealing with. We're living, right? And then beyond that point, we're looking for longevity in the marriage, right? Because now 5 years and up, we've settled into the marriage. We know exactly who we are. We should have learned how to work together, how to live together. Now you can really build your life together and grow into that 10, 20, 30 plus year relationship. Although it will require continued effort and investment, because marriage is not like, okay, I found what I needed, we're married, I found what I wanted, and then you don't have to do anything else. No. Once you get married, that's when the work starts. Marriage is teamwork. Marriage is problem solving. Marriage is growth together in a unified direction. That's what marriage actually is. And we kind of negate those things at times, right? And we have to realize that who we are today is not the same person that we were 10 years ago, and may not be the same person 10 years from now. That happens in a marriage too. So when you marry a person, maybe you two are in the same space, or you coalesce well enough to be able to live and function. But 10 years from now, it may be a little different. So you have to make sure that you're continuing to grow together in the way that you continue to mesh with one another. Does that make sense? Okay. Off my soapbox. So now that we know what we're going to be talking about today, the author here states, And it is not permissible for a man to propose over the proposal of his Muslim brother until his Muslim brother allows it or leaves it off. Until his Muslim brother allows it or leaves it off. Now, the word for proposal here is khitbah, not khutbah like we have on Fridays, but a khitbah. A khitbah is a proposal. So, what is this proposal? Because it is at the point of proposal that you can't offer a proposal on top of the proposal of your brother. So we need to know what a proposal is so that we can now look at the boundaries of that proposal. What is a proposal when it comes to marriage? What do we think? You ask someone to marry you? Okay, good. What if you ask them to marry you and they said no? A contract between you and the person. Rest of us think. Anyone? The proposal is when you have requested of someone to marry you and they have accepted that request. Okay? Again, you have offered someone, you have requested of someone to marry you, and they have accepted that. You have an agreement to marry one another. You have an agreement. It hasn't happened yet, but you've agreed to marry one another at this point. Before this point, it's open. Before this point, it's open. You're getting to know one another a little bit and things like this, right? It's open. So until a proposal has been made and been accepted, don't get upset if the sister has a few options on the table that she's assessing and you're one of those options. Sister, don't get upset if the brother has another couple of sisters that he's kind of getting to know a little bit, because we're not at the point of a proposal that has been accepted yet. Okay? Now, before the point of proposal, we're in the space of courtship. We're in the space of courtship. Courtship can continue beyond proposal, but definitely before proposal, we're in the space of courtship where we're just getting to kind of know the person, right? Getting to know the person, about the person. Again, we are assessing for the things that we just mentioned a short while ago, if they're there or not, and if this person is those things for me or not, okay? Or for you or not. Now, okay, I like this person, we're compatible, I think there's something there, I think it can work. I'm officially asking you to marry me, right? And typically, it may be the man that's gonna make the proposal, but sister, if you really feel that this man is that person for you, there's nothing that prevents you from proposing to someone, right? If you're in that space. All right, don't allow your opportunity to leave you because you're scared to speak up, or you're scared to take the proper steps or create the environment where that potentially can happen. Okay? Okay, good. So proposal is made. Right? I would like to marry you. Would you like to marry me? Can we get married? Marry me? Whatever you say, right? And there isn't necessarily a requirement to make it a huge event and get down on one knee and all of these type of things. That's culture, right? That's Western culture, American culture, right? You want to do that, you do that. Okay, fine. It's cultural, but don't think that you have to do that. The idea is proposal itself. I would like us to get married. Will you marry me? Yes. Okay. At this point that we have this agreement, now another man cannot come in and make a proposal to that woman, right? Now at this point, this woman is not entertaining other men. Now she is centralizing her focus on you in the courtship process, okay? Now we may be fine-tuning some things or whatever have you until we get to the point that we are fully certain that we want to marry one another, Okay? So the proposal is a level of commitment, but not full commitment yet. So far, so good. Okay. So if that makes sense, we'll take the next step here. And we'll say, as the author states, and it is not permissible to offer a khitbah, to make a proposal to one who is in iddah, to one that is in reconciliation. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, when, and we'll get to Kitab al-Talaq, we'll get to the book of divorce inshallah ta'ala, but we'll simply say this. When a man and woman are married, and the man no longer desires to be with the woman, he pronounces divorce in whatever language is clearly understood between the two of them, that he is divorcing her. Right? Enti talaq, I am divorcing you. Right? Clear language. Doesn't have to be those words, but it's clearly understood between both parties. When he says that, you're not divorced yet. At the point in time that he says that, you're not, the divorce hasn't been solidified yet. You are entered into a space that is called iddah. It is a reconciliation period. Okay? And during this reconciliation period, it is aimed toward just that, reconciling the marriage. Its time, its window of time is 3 menstrual cycles. Okay? Or 3 months from the time of the pronouncement of the divorce, if the cycles are irregular for any reason. Okay? And during this time, he has more right to take her back if he so chooses to. But if he does not take her back, and that window of time of 3 menstrual cycles elapses, then the divorce is solidified. They separate and go their separate ways. Before that time, the two of them are still married to one another and have the same rights that a husband and wife have over one another. However, he's not going to say or do anything that would indicate that he's taking her back, unless he is actually taking her back. So he's not going to say he's taking her back. He's not going to be intimate with her during that period. If he's intimate with her, he definitely took her back, right? Okay. When a husband and wife are within this reconciliation period, a man can't come and propose to her because she's still married. Because she's still married, right? A person, right? A person might, smell some blood in the water, taste some blood in the water, be out on a periphery somewhere or something, right? You might be waiting, but she's still married. You got to wait. You got to let that play itself out, right? So we don't offer proposals or express interest in that type of a space. Now, what if the woman has been widowed? What if the woman has been widowed? Now, if she has been widowed, she is in a similar space for 4 months and 10 days. What if the woman is in the space of an irrevocable divorce? The man has divorced her 3 times. This process of pronouncing divorce and iddah and all of this happened 3 times now. He divorced her. She's in a reconciliation, right? He took her back. They continue their marriage 1 time, right? They continue their marriage. He pronounces divorce again, a 2nd time, right? Okay, she's entered into iddah, reconciliation again. He takes her back, right? And a 3rd time, he pronounces divorce on her. You only get 3 shots, guys. You only get 3 shots. 3 shots. Go ahead. If the third shot, you divorce her. If you're married to a woman and you have gone through this process, sir, where you have pronounced divorce on her, took her back, pronounced divorce on her, took her back, and then pronounced divorce on her again, you don't want to be with that woman. You don't really want to be with that woman, right? Because as the man who is more responsible for the divorce, then the woman, you are meant to really be looking at yourself and managing your emotions. Am I making an emotional decision? Or am I making the right decision here because we're really in a space now where whatever has taken place, we can't continue forward this way. Maybe there really isn't compatibility there, right? Maybe we thought we had something, but we don't. Maybe it's just better for us in our lives that we go our separate our ways. We're responsible. We're supposed to be in this space here, right? So if you've done this 3 times, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You're responsible for. Go ahead. No, this question first. Go ahead.
Immaturity.
Immaturity.
So they marry young or younger, and after the 3rd time, you knew the rights. You knew what was required to separate.
Right.
And you go through the stages. So after the 3rd time, it's impermissible for that individual to marry her, but another individual can marry her.
Absolutely.
And then she could get divorced, and that makes it
almost. So in the case of an irrevocable divorce, right? You can't revoke it. I take it back. Oh, I ain't mean that. Oh, I was angry, so it don't count. I was upset, so it don't count. Right? We'll get to talaq. We'll get to that, inshallah, right? Because there's some things we kind of need to make sure we understand well and healthy in the space of divorce, and the proper process of it in accordance with Sharia, and also when we are meant to say it and when we're not, and when it counts and when it doesn't count, right? Sometimes we like to use divorce, talaq and khula', when a woman no longer desires to be with the man. It's called a khula', right? Sometimes we utilize talaq and khula' as an expression of emotion that we don't mean long term. Sometimes we use talaq and khula' as a means of controlling our spouse. That's not what they are actually tools for. You pull the trigger on it, it happens. You can't act like, oh, that didn't happen. But to answer our brother's question, if we get to a 3rd divorce, irrevocable divorce, what our Sharia mentions to us is, at that point, it is haram for those 2 to be married again. They can't get back together. It's haram now. Okay? And the only possible way for the 2 of them now to remarry after a 3rd divorce, an irrevocable divorce, is if this woman has married someone else, consummated the marriage with that someone else, gave the marriage a fair shot, and somehow down the line it just so happened that they got divorced. Now, if after that somehow the previous husband and this former wife reconnect, then they can re-explore marriage again and get a reset on those 3 divorces. You follow? That's the understanding. You divorce this woman 3 times, you don't want to be with her. You don't really want to be with her, right? And you're responsible for your decision. And if you think you really want to be with her, then you're going to want to be with her that bad, that much, that you are willing to wait. She has been with another man and consummated with another man and spent a life with another man, which can be years. And then after all of that, somehow you 2 reconnect and you're still willing to take her on as a wife because you really messed up that much and she was that good of a woman to you. Right? Most people don't make it that far. And if you don't want to go through this process, don't divorce your wife then. Whatever it is, work it out. Figure it out. Heal it, correct it, accept it, move forward. Because if not, this is what you're looking at. You're going to have to look at somebody else with the woman that you love because you couldn't control your emotions. Does this make sense? Go ahead. I mean, unless she's just not going to get married ever again in her life because, you know, you were just the creme de la creme. You were the cream of the crop, and no one can ever compare to you or be on your level, and she would never entertain another man after you. That's just impossible. Right. Most of them going to get married. Most of them are going to get married to somebody else. Go ahead.
Like you said, you think the man wanted to divorce the woman, right?
Uh-huh.
And what if the woman wanted to divorce the man? Do the same thing apply?
No. The process, so talaq is when the man no longer desires to be with the woman. When the woman no longer desires to be with the man, it's called a khula'. They have two different functions and two different impacts, right? It's two different trajectories, okay? But we'll discuss those details when we get to them. Our point, though, the point that we're making, because we're speaking about proposals, the khitbah, if a woman has been widowed and she's in a space where she has to, she's in a mourning space and she has a 4 month or 10 days before she can entertain marriage. Again, she has undergone an irrevocable divorce, right? And she's in that space, and she may be waiting to see whether, you know, whether she is actually whether she is pregnant or not, or right, because you want to be sure of these things. We don't want to mix our fluids and things like this, right? Because that does and can happen, and you get this idea you're not sure, right, who the father is or whatever have you, right? Because we jumped into another relationship too quickly, right? Also, from a psychological standpoint, we need to decompress, and we need to heal, and we need a little bit of space so that we can prepare ourselves for the next relationship that we're entering into, so that we don't bring the baggage and the harm and the whatever else, right? The psychological, right? That the psychological bag that we carry with us sometimes into the next relationship, right? We may need a little bit of a break. This allows for that. However, when a woman is in this space, again, irrevocable divorce, right? Because the third divorce, you stated that third time, that's it. You're no longer married. You're haram for each other at the point that you pronounce that divorce, okay? Or, again, she's widowed and she's going through that mourning process of 4 months and 10 days. Now, what can happen, though, is that a person can indirectly express interest but not propose, okay? And this is due to the statement of Allah the Exalted that has come in Al-Baqarah 235. Again, Al-Baqarah, verse number 235, our Lord states, وَلَا جُنَاهَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِيمَا عَرَقْتُمْ بِهِ مِنْ خِطْبَةِ النِّسَاءِ. And there is no wrong upon you in which you display of interest in women that you would propose to. Okay? Meaning in expression of interest. I'm coming, Moose, I'm coming. You say, okay, well, how is that? The author, he states, this ta'reed, this display of interest, a person may say, inni fi mithliki laragib. Certainly, for one such as you, I strive. Right? You're not saying, oh, I like you, please marry me. Right? I would like to marry you. But if a man had a woman like you, he would be satisfied. If a man had a woman like you, his life would be better. We're not saying, I want to marry you, will you marry me? We're not saying that. But clearly, you can see there's interest that is there. Or a person may say, La tafawitini nafsak. Do not allow me to miss out on the opportunity of you. Right? We're not saying marry me. Don't allow me to miss out on the opportunity of you, right? Okay. Or words that are similar to this, or words that are similar to this. Now, Musa, you had a question? Yes. So we're in the book of marriage. Y'all wanna talk about all this divorce? We trying to stay together? Huh? Go ahead. Okay, because Musa is the baby sheikh, by the way, so he has the technical questions. Can a man pronounce a divorce on his wife while the wife is pregnant? The answer to that is yes. Yes, he can. However, if he does so, again, the men are more responsible for the divorce than the women are. So if we do this, we know what we're getting into at the time that we do it, right? We're not doing this blindly without foresight. It is not a purely emotional, right, response, right? Men were meant to be able to kind of control ourselves in this area, okay? So, and be consistent and balanced even when the emotions of the woman fluctuate. Right, the emotions of the woman may fluctuate in her statements, and even sometimes her actions may fluctuate. We're meant to be the ones that are more balanced and consistent, okay? But now, if a man does pronounce divorce on his wife while she is pregnant, the divorce does occur. The pronouncement of divorce does occur. It does still count. However, her iddah, the reconciliation period, is extended throughout the entire of the pregnancy until she delivers. So he's responsible for her for that entire time. You pronounce divorce on her and she's 1 month pregnant, well, you got 8 months to go now. It's not 3 months anymore. You got 8. You're responsible for her now until she delivers. Right? We're not going to abandon our women while they're in that state. We're going to take care of them while they're in that state. And the idea when you pronounce divorce is you don't want to be with this woman. You've decided when we go through the process, you'll see when we get there, inshallah. But by the time that you have pronounced divorce, what's actually meant to happen is you've already gone through the decision process in your mind, and you've given it time before you even got to the point of pronouncing the divorce. So by the time you pronounce the divorce, you're already sure that this is what you want to do, sir. Right? So, but even if you're not sure yet, even if you thought you were sure, but maybe there's something and she corrects it. Maybe there was a challenge and it fixed itself. Maybe something happens and you realize, okay, I was wrong. I need to readjust. That's what the reconciliation period is for, right? Not your 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th divorce. No, that's what the reconciliation period is for, to adjust that. You follow? Okay. Now, if that makes sense, right? And again, we're focusing on the idea of proposal. The idea of a sit down is cultural. The idea of you marry a person that you don't even know, we made that up. So then what is it supposed to be like? And I'm not saying that if you go that route, the marriage is not valid. The marriage is still valid. It's a valid marriage. You just married someone that you don't know that well, right? You don't know well enough to get to the point of certainty that you know for sure you want to marry this person, right? Of course, once you marry the person, you really know a person once you start living with the person. That's going to take you a couple years. Right? All right. Now, what can happen or what should be happening in the courtship process when we're getting to know the person? What is allowable? What is expected? How is this supposed to work? What do we think? Because again, we think, okay, no boyfriends, girlfriends in Islam. That's true. But then we throw the baby out with the bathwater. And we think we're not supposed to get to know this person. No, you're supposed to get to know this person before you marry them. That's what courtship is. We have courtship in Islam. We don't have boyfriends and girlfriends. We have courtship. So what does that look like? What do we think?
That's what a wali for, right?
That's what a wali is for. The wali assists with that. The wali assists with courtship, yes, but the wali can't court for you.
No, but he keep things in the boundaries, right?
Okay, the wali keeps things in the boundaries. The job of the wali, of the guardian of this woman, her father, her grandfather, her uncle, her brother, on the father side, before the mother side, right? The wali, because this is what the wali is. The wali is the relative. It's the relative that has this role. And we're going to talk about details of this as well, inshallah, right? The person who stands in the place of those people, that's a wakil. One who's been made responsible to fulfill the role of that relative, right? Because sometimes either the wali himself, he is either unable or unwilling, so he appoints someone else, because that's his authority. Because it's his role of authority, he can appoint someone else to fulfill his role. Or she doesn't have anybody to do it, so then someone is appointed for her to do it, right? And again, not the good brother that the sister just wants to select whoever she wants, right? No, not that either. There's a process for that as well, right? Process for that as well. But again, what do we think courtship looks like? The wali assists with this process, but the wali is not the one that's doing the courting. What do we think it looks like? I know some of y'all are married, some of y'all been married. I mean, what y'all do before y'all got huh? I gotta give you a pass. We'll give you a pass. We're gonna give you a pass. All right. Well, we know the things that are allowable and things that are not allowable in our faith practice, right? We know this, right? We know where the red lines are, right? We know the red lines, yes? So we know that we're not entering into fornication and adultery with this person, right? We know we're not going there. But getting to know the person, okay, maybe the wali, he oversees it, right? In the beginning, a meeting or two or something like this in the beginning, whether it's over the phone or in person, right? But eventually, if the wali is comfortable and you two are responsible adults, the wali can say, okay, just keep me posted. Go ahead and if you want to call and back and forth and converse. Okay, no problem. You guys can talk. You guys can talk, right? And I don't need to kind of stick my hand all the way in, right? I'm trusting you guys with this, right? And you let them talk and kind of monitor and oversee with a half a step back. That's fine. The wali doesn't have to be on every single phone call. He doesn't have to be inside of every single text message. Doesn't have to. He can be. Doesn't have to be, right? That's his realm of responsibility to make his judgments. He's looking out for the best interest of the woman. That's the wali's job. His job is not to look out for the best interest of the suitor, right? Of the potential groom. That's not his job. His job is to look out for the woman. That's his job, right? Okay. Maybe you meet the person in a public setting, right? In a very public setting, so that you're not fully alone, right? So that you're not fully alone. So maybe that is out at a restaurant. Maybe that is out at a open park. Maybe be creative, right? That's open, right? But what you're not going to do is, the other stuff. You got me. Okay, alhamdulillah, right? But those things can happen where you can create environments where you get to know the person. Maybe you meet with the person with their family, or at their family's home, or at a family function, right? That maybe a family has some type of a dinner that they do every once in a while or something like that, and you come for that, right? You come for that, and you meet the person in the family, right? These things can happen. Right? Maybe there are certain functions that take place in the community, right? And there's a function taking place in the community, or at the masjid, or at some other locale that is a Muslim community function, right? And it's public, and you can kind of, okay, you may grab a seat off to the side somewhere and sit down and kind of get to know the person a little bit better, right? Whatever it is, like these are things that can happen. These are things that can happen. And for those of us that are in scenarios or have responsibilities where we're overseeing community functions, we should be conscious of the fact that we have people that are looking to marry in our community, and we should create opportunities for that to happen, right? Don't act like the only reason a person is coming to the function is to hear you speak, because that's not the only reason they come in. I'm sorry, right? That they're coming to see what's out there and who's available, and maybe there's somebody that I may be interested in. So create opportunities that facilitate that process for them, right? That facilitate that process. There is no time limit. There is no minimum and there is no maximum on how long it takes to get to know a person to the point that you're ready to propose, that or further, where you're certain now that I definitely want to marry this person, right? And we're ready to set a date for the marriage. There's no lower upper limit on this in our Sharia, right? We're just looking to get to the point of certainty that we want to marry one another. That's what we're looking for, right? Whatever that takes, whatever that takes. And again, our community, our brothers, our sisters, our parents, our family, right? Our spiritual brothers and sisters in the community, we want to support these people in this process and whatever we can do to facilitate it for them, because this is the community. This is the Muslim population. This is how we grow. This is how we get healthier. The foundation of the community is the family, and the nucleus of the family is the husband and the wife. So we understand its value because we're building everything on that nucleus of the husband and the wife, right? So we're building everything on that nucleus. It only makes sense that we nurture and care that nucleus and facilitate it the best way that we're able to. So far, so good. And of course, this can go the other way as well, where maybe sometimes you might want to marry someone and somebody knows that that's not the right person for you. I know you like the brother. I know you really like the sister. I know you think that person is the one. Do what you want to do. Do what you're going to do. But I'm telling you, I don't think this is a person for you. Here's why. You're not saying that to everybody. You're not spreading it out. You're not gossiping. You're not on social media. You're not spreading the negative that you know about this person in the world. But with that individual, you might need to say that, right? Okay. This is from a Sharia standpoint. From a psychological standpoint, though, sisters, I'm going to tell you something. Generally speaking, I'm not saying there aren't exceptions to this. Generally speaking, in 24 months or less, for most men, 12 months or less, they already know if they're going to marry you or not. They already know. Sharia gives room. Sharia gives room because we may need that room. The average Western man, definitely the average American man, 24 months is a long time. He knew he wasn't going to marry. He knew he wasn't. Again, most men, 12 months, less than 12 months. He knows. He knows. So if it's continuing on beyond that point, maybe there are certain doubts that he has. Maybe there are certain things in you that he would like to see that he's either shy to share or he's mentioned and you haven't changed yet. And for whatever reason, this courtship process is beneficial to him. So he keeps that going on. But he knows. All right? I'm going to give y'all that one. That's one of our tricks. He knows. Okay? All right. Question.
So you said when the khitbah is done, another person can't come in and make a proposal.
Yes.
So is that like something that's announced, or how does somebody else know?
How does someone else know? Okay, so the question is asking if when the khitbah has been done, when a proposal has been made, that woman is not to entertain the proposal of another man, right, at that point in time. So, but I mean, other men don't know. You just see out and about who you see out and about, right? And it happens, right? We don't always talk about this, but hopefully this is a space that we can speak healthily in, right? Sometimes you might know the person, you don't know who the person is married to, right? And brothers have had this experience. Women, I don't know if you're going to admit that you've had this experience, right? But brothers have had this experience where it's your wife, but you know, it's Jumu'ah, whatever it is, or a conference. A brother approaches your wife, right? Don't get mad. You take it as a compliment. He didn't know. He didn't know, right? But it happens, right? It happens, right? Okay, so it's at this point, right, when something is said to the woman that now this is her responsibility to handle that, right? Now it's her responsibility, right? There are certain responsibilities that the man carries. There are certain responsibilities that the woman carries. Sisters, this one is on you, because now we have some sisters that play with that, right? Because we have certain women that, Western women, definitely American women, that, and we don't always talk about these things out loud, but we have women culturally that like to collect men. I'm not saying that they're committing fornication and adultery and all of that. We have certain women that will keep men around that they deem to be useful for whatever reason. Maybe it's for validation. Maybe it's, oh, that makes me feel good that someone likes me. Maybe there are certain things that she feels that man can do for her. So she'll keep him out on the periphery, even though she knows that really she is focused on marrying this person over here, or she knows that I can't marry this person right now or be with this person right now, but in another scenario, if circumstances were different, I would marry this person. So then I need to find a way to keep him around as a contingency plan, some type of way, right? My word for that is a glass box. I call that a glass box. We have women that will keep men inside of the glass box, right? More women do this than we realize that they do it. Women, see how quiet they got, right? They quiet now, right? Women they don't think we know. I know, right? All right, I'm gonna get this one to the brothers. If you don't know that women do that, I'm telling you, brothers, women do that. I'm gonna tell on the men and the women throughout this class, all right? Women do that. Steve, that's why they smiling, see? They know. Either they've done it or they've seen it. Go ahead.
But when you pull ask a woman, don't most of them say I'm a 10.
Okay, good. So culture. So now with this proposal that we talk about, culturally, we say intended. I'm intended, right? There ain't no verse or hadith that say, let's get intended, right? The word for that is khitbah. It's a proposal, right? But you know, we talk and we know what we mean by what we say, right? I'm intended. And if that's the language you want to use to let someone know, then sisters, you can say I'm intended, not something else where you get to put them in a glass box, right? Hold them in suspended animation. All right, he thinks somehow, some way he's going to have an opportunity when really it's not there for him. Yes.
So how can
The sisters are telling in the comments. Most women do this. That's a sister that said that, not me. Most women do this. Okay. They call it options, right? The sisters telling on y'all. They not even holding back. Go ahead.
so how can you get married if like you're not really supposed to talk to
Okay.
or women?
Good. How can you get married if you're not supposed to talk to the woman? Good. So the idea is that is the general understanding, right? That's what hijab is. Hijab is not necessarily the clothing that a woman wears. The clothing is an expression of a mindset. The clothing is an expression of how men and women are to interact with one another that aren't related to one another. That's what hijab is. Hijab is an interaction. Hijab is for men too, not just women, right? Okay. But when we are interested in marrying someone, then there are things that become allowable, permissible, that would not be permissible in other circumstances. Okay? For example, we know that we're encouraged to lower our gaze. Right? We're familiar with Ghadd al-Basar, right? With lowering our gaze, men and women, right? We're familiar. Good. That's the foundation, and that's the generality. But if there's someone that you're interested in marrying or someone that you need to assess for marriage, then at that point it becomes allowable to, look at the person and, kind of see if you like them or not, right? If they have that thing that does it for you, whatever that thing is, right? I'm not saying to start drooling and all of that, but you can look permissible, you can look, right? And you can continue to look more than once. Women are typically better with that than men, to the point that most men don't notice when women do it. For most women, in 30 seconds or less, they can assess you and make a decision in their mind if you are a person they will entertain on a tertiary level, on an introductory level, right? That's why men get in trouble, because women are better at it than men are, right? Sometimes men, we get stuck. We get stuck, right? It becomes obvious, right? This is why we know from the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gave us one look, right? You got one look, okay? Then catch yourself and look away, right? Unless you're looking to get married or something like that. But if you're just out and about in society, right? Don't just continue to look at someone that way. The sunnah allows for someone caught your eye, okay, that's natural. That's natural. Someone caught your eye, you got stuck for a moment, okay, gather yourself and then look away, right? Again, most women, that was it. That's all they needed, right there, right? And they probably gonna look at your shoes first, right? Pro tip. Okay, go ahead.
So if you are attending,
Mm.
you have, look for somebody, so you don't have to look and turn away. You can look and give her an idea.
Don't make people uncomfortable.
Right.
Okay, all right, so let's dip into psychology a little bit, right? Okay. And this is something that, from a cultural standpoint, exists and we don't know why. We'll say on the East Coast, you get 1.7 to 1.12 seconds to look at somebody before they feel like that person feels like it's an issue. What you're looking at? You get 1.7 to 1.12 seconds on the East Coast of America, right? But other places in the world, their time limit is longer. They can go up to 3 to 5 seconds, and it's not unusual in their society. So when we travel the world, or we have people from other places in the world that are here, and you don't know the person, you ain't never seen them before, and they just looking at you. To them, it's not normal. They may not even mean anything by it. But our clock is 1.7 seconds. You got problems up. That's where we at, right? And understand, as a man, if you're going to be looking at a woman that way, you got a 1.7 clock if she notices it. Which is why there is an encouragement in the sunnah that if there's someone that you are actually interested in, I'm not saying to just go out and just be looking at whoever for whatever. You have a person that you're actually interested in. The sunnah is for the man to look at her from a space that she doesn't realize he's looking at her. That's the sunnah. That's the sunnah, right? The sunnah teaches us to do, for the men to do, what women often naturally do. Women often naturally look at a man from places that the men don't realize they're looking at them.
Right about that.
You follow? The sunnah teaches us to do what they do. It doesn't have to tell the women that, they already do it. Right? You don't have to be right in her face and staring at her. No, that's going to make her uncomfortable. Right? And if you want her to marry you, after you made her feel like you're a creep, now you're a creep. You're on creep status now. Right? Now, if she was going to be interested in you, Maybe now you got to get past the creep status. Creep, right? Okay. All right. And then moving forward, and perhaps we'll close with this because we see the time here. The author states, and it is appropriate. And we've had a few different wordages here. We'll look at the wordage here. Firstly, the verse in Al-Baqarah in 235, it says, وَلَا جُنَاحَ, right? And there is no, the phraseology, la junaha, it means it's not haram. It means that it's not sinful. When you see this wordage, right? It's not sinful to do this. It's not a sin. Here, the author states, وَيَنْبَغِي, and it is appropriate, meaning it is mustahab, it is encouraged. It is encouraged to give a khutbah during the aqd of nikah. It is encouraged to state or to iterate khutbatul haja, as we call it, the sermon of need, at the time of the aqd of a nikah, at the time of the contract of a marriage. And as we stated earlier, we're going to come across this probably in our next lesson, inshallah. But the aqd of a nikah, the contract of a marriage, is not necessarily a written agreement on paper between two people. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. The actual agreement, the actual aqd, is ijab and qubul, is a proposal and acceptance. Not the initial proposal where you marry me, I agree. Not that. We're past that point now. We're between the groom and the wali. The wali, the guardian, offers the woman that he's responsible for in marriage by name to the groom, to the man. And the man states, qabilt, I accept, or any wordage that means that. That's the aqd. That is the agreement. And that is when the actual marriage itself takes place. That's when the marriage is live. Now you're officially married. At that point, technically, right? But now around that, right, the marriage taking place is that. But now around that, we build certain things. There are certain things from the sunnah that we can build around that. And there are other cultural things that can be allowable around that, okay? But the actual marriage itself taking place is that, when everything is in place for that to happen, okay? Now, during the time of the aqd, during the time of ijab and qubul, during the time of the contract, during the time of proposal and acceptance of that proposal, it is the sunnah for the khutbatul haja, for the sermon of need to be stated. This is what the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would do. We hear it often on Fridays in Alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh, to the end of that. That is the khutbatul haja, the sermon of need. Okay? Now, we're not saying that you cannot have a written contract. You can have a written contract if you want to have a written contract. No problem. You can stipulate things inside of this contract if you want. Because of the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, al-Muslimuna inda shurutihim. The Muslims are bound to the stipulations that they place upon themselves. Okay? So you can add extra stipulations upon yourself that the Sharia has not made bound upon you. You can do that if you want to, but you don't have to. You don't have to make something binding on yourself that Allah and His Messenger didn't make binding upon you. But you can if you want to, right? And understand that that is just that. That is just it is a contract between a husband and a wife. It is not necessarily the aqd of nikah. It is not necessarily the contract of marriage. Unless you include the wordage of ijab and qubul inside of the written document. If you include the language of proposal and acceptance inside of the legal document, then it can be aqd nikah. Then it can be the contract of marriage, right? And there are a lot of marital contracts today, templates and such, that do include the wordage of inside of, right? But again, if you're going to have a marital contract, I'm just stating, just know what you actually have in front of you and know how to use it, right? Know what the different tools are. You don't need to have a written contract if you don't want to have one. And if the reason why you have a written contract is to fulfill the agreement of marriage, then that can be done verbally if that was your purpose of doing the written document. So, and it can be both. You can have a written document and you can have the verbal act. You can have that too. I'm just stating, understand what they are. And they can be collapsed all into one. I'm just stating, understand what the differences are and how to use them. Okay? But we'll take this and then we'll close, inshallah ta'ala. The author states, so it is appropriate that there be a khutbah, the khutbah al-hajj, the sermon of need, during the time of the contract of the marriage. And this we find in the narration of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, as he states, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he taught us the tashahud during hajjah, when there's a need to be fulfilled. And the tashahud that he taught us when there's a need to be fulfilled, a need like the Friday sermon, a need like a marriage, a need like some type of a public lecture, for example, some type of public announcement to the people, for example, in alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa sayyiati a'malina may yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa may yudlil fala hadiya lahu wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Translation. Indeed, all praise belongs to Allah. We laud him, L-A-U-D, not L-O-R-D. We laud him. We seek his aid. We ask his forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evils of our own souls, and the evils of our own actions. Whomever it is that Allah has guided, there is none that can misguide him. And whomever it is Allah has misguided, there is none that can guide him. I testify that there is none worthy of worship in truth except for Allah, alone without any partner. And I testify that Muhammad is a servant and his messenger. And then there are 3 verses that are recited. This is collected by the people of the Sunan. We'll discuss what that means next week. And the 3 verses are to be explained, and those 3 verses are stated in what comes next. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على محمد. Questions? Questions? So now hopefully we kind of understand a little bit better how to approach getting married, or a person that we're interested in, and how the courtship process should be operating. Are there questions? Sisters? We got nothing? So you want me to believe that I explained it that well that you now don't have any questions? I don't believe it. I don't believe you. We have another sister that I can't really see. Other sister that I can't really see. Any questions? Okay.